So, in my lifetime, the United States has only ever done the wrong thing in regards to basically all of our wars, and there are plenty of them. And just recently, the Trump administration, basically Trump himself announced that he's going to be withdrawing U.S. troops from Syria and half of the troops from Afghanistan. And he should do the other half as well, by the way. And this is the first time that I can remember in my life, and I'm sure the lives of plenty of other people my age and even older, that the US has actually made a decision not based on military adventurism and imperialism. And General Mattis actually decided to resign as a result of this because he's a warmonger, like almost everyone else in mainstream politics. And as far as I know, this is also the first time that's ever happened, that a general has resigned because of a president's lack of commitment to American imperialism and adventurism, which, no matter how you look at it, is a step towards peace. And if you look at pretty much all of the mainstream media coverage of this, you can see why it lands when Trump screams fake news all day. Because whether you're looking at liberal outlets or conservative outlets, if they're in mainstream US media, they are covering this as a bad thing. That the US is finally scaling down one of its countless, endless wars. Watching this back, I just realized right here that I said we're scaling back one of our endless wars. Obviously, Syria and Afghanistan we're scaling back too, but Trump has obviously escalated these wars in the past, and even after running the whole campaign saying that we need to end the wars and rebuild our own country, which I'm sure won him plenty of votes. So this is a good thing that he's doing this. We have plenty of wars going on. We can afford to end plenty of them. We're not the world policemen. We don't go around saving people. That's not all that we do. We do plenty of harm. Ask anyone else in the world. Every other country in the world, when you survey them, says we are the greatest threat. The United States is the greatest threat to world peace. Everyone knows that except in the United States. And by the way, media's not going to report that either. Also, our military budget is greater than the next 10 countries combined. And 8 or 9 or something of those countries are our allies. We could cut our budget in half and still be the greatest spender on our military by a lot, I think. We could cut our military budget by a lot and invest in our own country. And Trump said that a lot. And maybe he's finally following through with it. And if he is, that's a good thing, no matter what anyone tries to tell you. Just a side note, Obama and Bush both, I think, fluctuated the troop levels in Afghanistan throughout their presidencies. Withdrew sometimes and then added again. So hopefully this is not what Trump's going to do, but either way, right now, less troops is good almost everywhere in the world for us. We have so many. By the way, do Iraq next, please, Trump, and all the other wars. And you will be the most popular president in American history with the actual people, while mainstream politicians and media embarrass themselves by saying that that's not a good thing somehow, as they're doing right now. I don't know how many people actually know this, but we've been in Afghanistan for almost 20 years now. We have people dying. We have American kids dying in wars that were started before they were born. by men they will never know. And they're killing people they have never known and will never know. And putting their own lives in danger while doing it. I don't remember who said it, but they said the wars are not meant to be successful. They're meant to be endless. And right now in mainstream US politics and apparently the news media, if you dissent from that or deviate from that in any way and fight back against the endless wars, you're gonna be smeared and silenced. So if you're a conservative and you think this is a bad thing, I mean, that's just blatantly against peace. And if you're a liberal and you're against this, then you're a partisan hack if you're against this because Trump is doing it, because this is objectively a peaceful thing and it doesn't matter who's doing it. Peace is the right answer. But the mainstream media does not get that, or maybe some of them do get it, especially certain reporters, but they are paid millions of dollars to not report on it. So every story you see in the mainstream media is going to be pro-war and trying to tell you that this is a bad thing, which is absurd. Yeah, this is why it lands when Trump screams fake news all day. Mainstream news are so disconnected with average Americans. They're paid millions of dollars. Of course they don't know what it's like to be a real American in a time where 50% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency and 80% of families are struggling to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck, and this is the richest country in the history of the world. We can do so much better than that, and the media just doesn't cover it. All they talk about is Russia or civility politics and things like that. They don't talk about what Americans care about because they are paid not to. A lot of people think there is a liberal or conservative bias in the media, but I think it's pretty clear the only bias, well, sometimes there's liberal or conservative on certain outlets, but the only bias that is through and through all of the mainstream media in the US is an establishment corporate bias. And what that means is all of our media companies are owned by 6 corporations. 6. And they are all multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations, and it is blatantly just against their interest to want to rock the boat and advocate for any kind of change. So they're not going to report on anything that seems out of the ordinary or against the status quo or is not okay with the corporations. And one of those things is being anti-war. They're not allowed to do that. And if the reporters on mainstream media outlets are ever anti-war or any anti-establishment position, they are fired. And then no one and the rest of the media ever tries to talk about it. And there are several examples of this now, including Ed Schultz, Dylan Radigan, Cenk Uygur, Crystal Ball, Chris Hedges, Melissa Harris Perry. Those are just ones I can think of off the top of my head who have been fired for being either anti-war, anti-establishment, or just talking about things that Americans care about. Yeah, all our media companies care about is profit. They do, the mainstream ones. They don't care about what Americans actually care about. They're paid to keep you uninformed, basically. This is what makes the whole wave of new media so important. And when I'm talking about people like Cal Kalinske, Jimmy Dore, Ken Klippenstein. There are plenty of individual reporters at even some of the mainstream outlets that do a decent job but I can't think of really any who work for like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News who consistently cover the issues that real Americans care about. The only ones I can think of are Glenn Greenwald, David Sirota, Jordan Chariton, Matt Taibbi, like I said, Ken Klippenstein. They're not going to be hired by CNN. And they're not going to be hired by MSNBC because they tell the truth. And if they did that on one of those shows, they would be fired for it. Local media isn't so bad about that, though. But even, I mean, a lot of local outlets are afraid to rock the boat. It's just, I don't know. It's just the way things are. And mainstream journalism right now. A lot of reporters don't do their own reporting. Their stuff is written for them. They're told what to advocate for. Yeah, you can't listen to people like that. Reporters with special interests are not reporters. Journalists are supposed to hold the powerful accountable, not be part of their cocktail circuits and be so focused on access journalism, which is not offending the people that you're reporting about so that you can continue doing interviews with them. You can't be so focused on that your reporting suffers and you don't tell the truth because of it, just because you're so worried with maintaining your connection with those people so you can continue talking to them. There's also a problem in mainstream media with the whole idea of both sides journalism or neutrality instead of objectivity. That's a key difference. Almost all mainstream outlets stick to two sides neutrality journalism instead of being objective to telling the truth. Neutral means no matter what's true, you give both sides of the argument, even if one is objectively true and one is objectively false. Being objective means you tell the truth no matter what. And I think it's pretty obvious which one of those is the correct option for a reporter to be. But in the mainstream news, they're almost all neutral instead of objective. And the problem with that is like reporting climate change, when 99.5 or more percent of the science says climate change is real and is affecting the world and humans are affecting it drastically, CNN, who's supposed to be, our unbiased news media, will have on someone who's just saying climate change is BS and a scientist who actually knows what they're talking about and try to present that as if those are equal takes when one is objectively true and one person is being paid to have a false opinion. It's just dishonest, improper journalism to report it that way. And that's how almost all of the mainstream outlets do in the US. That's propaganda, actually. That's not journalism. Yeah, I don't know. All they talk about is Russia, Stormy Daniels, sensationalism. There are so many things wrong with our country that they could be talking about. Medicare for all, end the wars, end the drug wars, give people education, raise the minimum wage. If you don't see that there's a clear disconnect between what Americans care about and what's actually covered on the media, I don't know what to tell you. Because it's blatantly obvious. And this is what I can't reiterate enough makes getting your news from new media sources or just reporters that are doing the right thing and are not being paid to not tell the truth is so important. Again, some of the people who I think are doing a good job are Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore, David Sirota, Glenn Greenwald, Jordan Chariton, the whole TYT Investigates crew, Ken Klippenstein, those guys. Those are some of the only people I can think of who are doing real journalism on behalf of working class and lower class Americans who actually care about real issues. Establishment media is not interested in doing anything that could rock the boat. Just really quickly, I want to be clear about something. I think there are plenty of local reporters and reporters at local outlets across the country who do very good work and are only in journalism for the right reasons, to give people a voice who have been disenfranchised and hold the powerful accountable, etc., etc., to be the watchdogs of power. I think most print journalists at local outlets are fine on that, especially in my area, in Charleston and Huntington, West Virginia. For those of you who don't know, most of the local reporters are doing their best, and we have plenty of brilliant ones. I'm not going to name them because I'll feel bad about leaving some of them out because I'm not going to be able to remember them all, but there are plenty. The main problem is clearly establishment, corporate, national media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, etc. It's the Washington Post, even the New York Times, even a lot of mainstream corporate print outlets don't do a great job. They don't let reporters tell the truth about anything that multinational corporations are not okay with. And that includes being anti-war, like I said. And if you deviate from that, you will be disciplined or fired. And we have countless examples of that. And no one is talking about it still. And like I said, there are plenty of issues the mainstream media could cover, but instead they focus only on Russia, Stormy Daniels, civility politics, Trump said a cuss word, Trump tweeted something. Which, don't get me wrong, you do have to cover his tweets sometimes. He tweeted the Syria thing before announcing it any other way, I think. So you do have to cover tweets sometimes. But sensationalism is not good journalism, generally. There are plenty of things to report on that should be in the news cycle every day that are left out to talk about ridiculously trivial issues. Like I said, 80% of families in the U.S. right now live paycheck to paycheck. 50% of families workers can't afford a $1,000 emergency. 50% of workers make like $30,000 a year or less. Money in politics has destroyed our whole political system. You can't even be involved in politics for the most part unless you're rich. It's nearly impossible to be involved in politics unless you are very, very wealthy. We have the biggest wealth inequality right now since the Gilded Ages. Jeff Bezos we could end world hunger. Jeff Bezos could end world hunger and still be the richest person in the world, ever. The U.S. could cut our military budget by like 1/3 and end world hunger, send everyone to college, and still have by far and away the greatest military empire in the world. And we're not going to do those things. Definitely not soon enough. And a large reason for that is because the media does not talk about them. Again, because most of them are paid not to. You need to be really careful about where you get your news from these days. Like I said, you can check out some of the other guys I named earlier. You can check out TYT Investigates, Status Coup, Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kulinski, David Sirota. Their reporting will be very noticeably different than what you're used to because their only objective and passion is for telling the truth. not for selling out to live comfortable careerist lives, to not tell the truth. We have 50,000 people die every year because they can't afford health care in the richest country in the history of the world. No one ever talks about that in the media either. That's not a thing that's real or that happens in any other developed nation. We have a racist criminal justice system. Our economy is rigged for the 1%. Everyone already knows that. The richest top 1% own more than the bottom, whatever percent combined. We are in drastic, almost unprecedented times. This is crazy. And the media is a large reason, or is one of the main reasons for it, I think. They are largely to blame for this, including, or in addition to neoliberal Democrats who have sold out workers, again, on behalf of their wealthy corporate donors. But again, that is a discussion for another video and would take so much time to talk about. Be careful who you get your news from, especially in mainstream news. Yeah. Last thing, I forgot to add, this is also rather recent news, that 5 House Democrats, I think it was, just voted to continue our support in the genocide going on in Yemen right now. And again, this is just one more example of an issue that is very real and affects Americans more than everything in the news cycle right now. And it's not going to be reported on except for by underground, independent media news sources who will be inevitably smeared and silenced by mainstream media. Can't stress enough how important it is to not only get your news from mainstream media, because they leave out plenty of things, they lie about plenty of things. They're paid to not have you informed, and you need to be informed, not only because you need to know what your tax dollars are being used for, because a lot of times they're being used to kill strangers for no reason, but also because this affects all of us every day, whether you realize it or not. And most of the country is struggling right now, and people need to pay attention. Whether the media the establishment mainstream corporate media is gonna help us or not, we need to pay attention, and there are people telling the truth. You just have to find them and support them, or who knows when things are gonna get better.